Hello, and welcome to Right from the Kickoff with your host, Joe Wright. And joining me today again is the main man, William Bayliss. How you doing, Will?
I'm very well, Joe. A lot of feisty semi-finals to look forward to, isn't there,
Oh,
tonight and tomorrow?
let's be honest, we're even more excited because obviously our home nation is involved in the semi-finals, which is always good for us. Come on, England, you know. But just before we get started, kind of a cursory note as always, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and now Twitter, which we are up and running like we were promised. Um, but first of all, just want to run sort of kind of what was going to happen this week. We were going to have two guests on, two of our friends from another podcast, Danish supporters, Christian and Jasper. Obviously, for those that listen to the podcast, Jasper joined us a couple of weeks ago to talk about the Christian Eriksen incident, but they're not joining us today, and I'm going to pass it over to Will just to explain why they're not.
Yeah, so thanks very much, Joe. So unfortunately, Christian couldn't make it due to family reasons, which is completely fair enough. But we've all got lives away from here, don't we? But also, Jasper unfortunately can't make it because I think everything's just got a bit too much for him, unfortunately. First of all, as you know, with the whole Eriksen incident, he was out of a match. And also, away from football, he's also a Speedway GP referee, which is motorbikes, and it's quite a popular sport, to be fair. So he was a referee for this, and it's a quite high-profile case because he was a referee and he disqualified, I believe, one of the races for, I'm not sure what he did, but he disqualified him for some reason. And his name was Nicky Pedersen, and he's quite well known, like in the speedway world. And then normally when you do it, you shouldn't really. We all see people arguing with referees, but he took it one step too far. Nicky, he went to Jasper in the referee's box, which is totally against the rules anyway, and started threatening him. And it was awful. Jasper has been really struggling for it, so we send him all the best, and hopefully he'll be back to his normal self before we know it. It's a lot for anyone to take, and on top of that, with the Eriksen incident as well, it's a lot for anyone. And neither of us could still go as he's doing. He's doing really well, so we send all his support, and hopefully justice will be served, AJ.
Yeah, and for any obviously regular listeners to this podcast, obviously don't worry, they will be on. Both of those people will be on again next season, I'm sure, because they are friends of the show, and obviously they do run their own podcast and stuff. So obviously, being Danish supporters, they'll be as pumped up as we are for tomorrow's semi-final. So yeah, let's get into it, and let's get into those semi-finals. We can't start anywhere else other than England, Denmark, can we? Having being English ourselves. Now we're just going to talk about the route through to the final, kind of how the teams have progressed, and you'd say that England have really kind of gotten better throughout this tournament, haven't they? And a lot of people have been saying, outside of the country as well as our own, obviously, that England have probably got the best squad depth in the tournament, and actually that's coming to fruition now, isn't it? You would say, kind of how they're managing to attack the games, but also defensively resolute, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one actually, because before the tournament started, we were saying defense, or we're looking a bit shaky. I'm not sure how we're doing, and we've kept all clean sheets so far. We've beaten the record. The last time we equaled the same records was in that famous year in 1966. So if it was anything like that, I'll even take the final at this point. It's just unbelievable. And it's just, let's just hope that we stay strong at the back. And it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because
it's going to be very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, let's look at the route to the final, shall we? So first of all, let's go back to the group stages. So the first game for England, they beat 1-0 Croatia, and it was a bit of a lackluster performance, if we're going to be honest, wasn't it, Joe? We were like,
I think the way we categorised it was we were defensively resolute. You know, it was the first time that we'd seen Callum Phillips and Declan Rice play. You know, it didn't blow us away in the attacking sense, but you know, it's kind of the way you'd say it is job done. You know, we got the job done, and it was decent performance. But that's kind of how we categorised it, wasn't it?
yeah, completely. And obviously, the first match for Denmark, as we all know, was when Ericsson sadly collapsed in the middle of the game. So Denmark actually ended up losing that game 1-0 because it all just got a bit too much. And then we were made to carry on the same night, and it was all too much for them.
I think it's worth pointing out, and I mean, I know we did on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. We pointed this out. I think it's worth pointing out that Denmark were definitely on top against Finland in that game before the incident occurred. You know, yes, it was 0-0, but they were very much in the driving seat, and I have no doubt that realistically in the second half they'd have come out and won the game if the incident hadn't occurred. I think it did affect them, as quite rightly it would do. You know, it would do any of us, wouldn't it? So yeah, but yeah, they lost the first game, and then obviously going on to the second game, they then lost that to Belgium. Actually came out, didn't they, quite strongly.
Yeah, they went 1-0 up in that game, didn't they?
They
We
went
were thinking,
1-0 up.
oh, they looked the real deal, especially in that first half, weren't they?
They did. They played really well, and then of course De Bruyne and I think Hazard came on at half time and kind of changed the game for Belgium, as we know that Belgium have got all these stars now, aging stars, and no longer a golden generation. They've not won anything, have they? But that's by the by. But anyway, so they lost 2-1. So first team to lose the first two games, and then just going on to Denmark's last group game. What a result, 4-1, and it kind of gave them the momentum going into the knockout rounds, didn't it, Will?
Yeah, and since then they've been scoring left, right, and centre. They scored 4 goals in that one. They scored another 4 against Wales, and in the quarter-final,
They won 2-1 against Czech Republic, didn't they?
Yeah, so they've been banging in goals left, right, and centre, and they're a real threat going forward.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they've got, the thing is, I think I was reading a stat which will interest you, Will. They've actually had 7 different goal scorers in the tournament, which is insane, really, when you think about it. I mean, you know, when you look at other teams, they've usually got a front man or 1 or 2 players. Like you look at England, we've got Kane. You know, Sterling's been banging the goals, 3 of them each. Whereas obviously the goals are much more spread throughout the team in the Denmark sort of ranks. Are you, just going on to the game itself? Obviously, we'll go back to England in a second. Are you slightly disappointed that this is coming in the semi-final and not the final? The reason I'm asking this question is because, of course, me and you have both said that we want to see Denmark do well. Of course, our allegiances are to England, but it is a shame that we don't get to see this in the final, because I do want Denmark to do well, obviously excluding England. You know, they're very much everyone's second team at this point, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think, if I'm being honest, most of Europe, other than the obvious reasons, will want Denmark to go through anyway. So I think, yeah, I told a Christian actually that if Denmark made the semi-final, I'll buy a Denmark shirt. But now they're playing England, obviously I've revised that offer.
Yeah, well,
I think they're going to be a real threat, and credit to the resilience they showed to bounce back after all the adversity that they've had with Ericsson, and they really came together in the team, and that really showed in that game with Ericsson, like we were saying before, how strong of a unit they are. So I think it's going to be a real tough game for England. It won't be a walkover by any means, will it?
No, it won't. I think, obviously, this is with my England hat on, though. I think if you were to ask Denmark, in terms of the knockouts, will this be the hardest game they've played? I think they would agree with that. You know, in terms of the teams they've faced, no disrespect to Wales or Czech Republic, but I think England do have quality all over the pitch and the bench. So I think Denmark won't be looking at this as an easy game either. So I think it's very obvious that Denmark have got a tight knit unit, and they're playing for more than just the game at this point. They're playing with more emotion.
Yeah, they really are. But let's talk about England briefly, because they're also working as a tight unit. I've never seen such a tight packed group of players playing for England than I have in my lifetime. If we're being real, would you say the same thing, Joe?
I would say the same thing for sure, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. If you don't mind me going into them, well, you look at a lot of the golden generation. So for BBC at the moment, we've got Rio Ferdinand, you've got Frank Lampard, and then you've also got Alan Shearer. Kind of coming into the edge of that golden generation before he retired. They all kind of said that the way it used to work is genuinely the managers used to pick just players from the top four clubs. Now the top four clubs used to have massive rivalries through your Alex Ferguson's, your Arsene Wenger's, and your other Jose Mourinho's, that kind of thing. So it used to kind of, when it came to international duty, there used to be this kind of bitterness in the ranks, and then you'd get your kind of your odd clubs as well, that they'd all sit on separate tables, so they'd sit in the same club, separate tables from everyone else, and it was a very kind of inclusive club sort of thing. You know what I mean? They'd all kind
Very
of
clicky, wasn't it?
segregate themselves. Whereas Gareth Southgate, one of the first things he did when he became manager, and I know it sounds like such a small thing, but it seems to be working, is they're all sitting on one big table. They're all good friends. You've got, for example, Declan Rice and Mason Mount, best friends when they were growing up, playing through the ranks. And of course, Declan Rice plays for West Ham, and Mason Mount plays for Chelsea, so they're best friends. You've got, other teammates who have played for previous clubs with each other. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot more camaraderie seems to be going on, and it's paying off on the pitch for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And another key example of that is Sterling and Rashford, who are like best friends, like on the pitch and off the pitch, regardless that they play for Man United and Manchester City, don't they? So that's just one of the key examples of, yes, they're rivals, but they're actually really good friends as well. And it's really good to see, to be fair. And this is the one good thing why I like international games as well, nowadays particularly, because it brings fans like me and you, who normally, well, not so much rivals anymore because Leicester are doing really well. But you know what I mean? When Forest and Leicester were in the same league many years ago, international games would bring us together. And we would have that one common goal. And that's what I really like about it, particularly this year as well, because it's echoed throughout the squad as well. So we see them performing really well together. And it makes you want to do the same also, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, of course it does, and there's obviously that energy going through kind of the country at the moment. Obviously, the famous words "it's coming home" is kind of being battered along the country at the moment. Even I've seen even people who aren't football fans at the moment watching the football and really getting into it, because it's international football. You want your country to do well, and there's that kind of patriotism, isn't there, that's going through the country at the moment, especially. And I want to say this because I think I've made a couple of comments on my social media, my private social media, as you've probably seen. Well, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, COVID this, COVID that," which I'm not saying I don't agree with. COVID is a very serious thing, but we are, people are getting vaccinated now. These events are being used as test events, and I have to say, well, and I know you kind of echo what I'm saying. You're feeling the same. Is the this country has been through so much crap, basically, and so's the rest of the world. These kind of events really do give you a mood boost, don't they? If you're into your
They
football,
really have, yeah.
even if
Even
you're
if
not,
you're not, yeah.
even if you're not into your football, really gives you a boost. We're seeing fans back in stadiums for one, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, as much as I've gotten used to the fake crowd noise, it's not the same at all.
It's not the same.
So when you see that, and you and then you get people going, yeah, but what about COVID? It's like, I'm sorry guys, but we've got to live with this now. We're going to have to live with this for the next 10, 20. We're going to have to live this for the rest of our lives, I think, actually. So we've got to get used to that. We've got to get things kind of up and rolling and stuff. And we're just enjoying the football at the end of the day, aren't we, mate? That's the thing. And everyone's behind the country now. Everyone's behind England, and hopefully we can bring it home, eh?
Yeah, and let's get back to football, shall we?
Yeah,
Now,
let's get back
because
to football. Sorry, I
to the
digress.
game, that's all right. I like the passion in your voice, Joe. But yeah, if anyone listening has anything wants to add to it, they disagree or agree with, as always, comment below on any of their social medias. Obviously, like I say before, we have Twitter now, so give us a follow on that. Let's boost the numbers up a little bit.
Yeah,
Right from the kickoff pod. Check it out.
let's do that. What I was going to say is let's go back to kind of England's group stage. So we started off with Croatia. We won that game. Obviously, then we came in and we got quite a drab 0-0. Could have lost that game to Scotland. Thankfully, we didn't. And then, of course, we got, I would say, again, a very defensive 1-0 against Czech Republic. But again, we got all wins. We got those 2 wins plus a draw, and then didn't concede any goals. It kind of gave you that defensive solidity coming into the knockout stages, didn't it, Will?
Yeah, it really did. So moving on to the quarterfinals, the round of 16, I should say. 2-0 Germany. 2-0 versus Germany. Sterling and importantly Harry Kane getting the goal, and that really opened the floodgates for Kane. You can see the confidence what instilled back into him, because he always had the ability. I know a few of our friends said, "Oh, they never really rated Kane," blah blah blah. But Joe, we've always rated Kane. We know
he's. I know. I will argue to the death over Harry Kane being world class. I've always said he's world class. I've said that constantly on this podcast when we're doing Premier League analysis. I will argue to the death that he's world class, because he is. And whether you like him or not, whether it's because you don't like Spurs or whatever, you know what I mean. He is world class. You can't deny that. You know, anybody who says that he's not, he got 22 goals and 14 assists last season. If you're just a striker that's kind of milling around, you don't do that. And he's proven it again. Yes, all right, it's only 2 goals against Ukraine and a goal against Germany, but that's all you need to get yourself running. He's got 3 goals now, and I'm feeling more confident tomorrow night that he can add to that.
Yeah.
He's in form.
Speaking of which, so obviously Kane's are showing. I'm going to ask you this question now, Joe. What team would you start tomorrow versus Denmark?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's not necessarily the question on everyone's lips. Not at the moment, isn't necessarily who's going to play, because we know that he's probably going to play 2 holders, and he's probably he's going to keep with sort of the same defence. It just depends on whether it tends to be kind of. So you've got Mason Mount's definitely going to start. Raheem Sterling's definitely going to start. So it's either going to be Sancho, Saka, Grealish, maybe Rashford, because he can always play on that side as well. So it just depends on who he's going to put in out of those players. But I think to be honest, 10 out of the 11 have already been decided. It's just generally that side. I'd honestly play Sancho again. I thought he played very well against Ukraine. I mean, I know Denmark are a slightly different kettle of fish, but I think he could do a job. But again, I'm pretty confident now. Whoever he puts out into that position, I'm pretty happy with and can do a job, because Saka played really well against Czech Republic.
It's whether he's injury fit, because he took a bit of a knock, didn't he?
Apparently, he's been declared fit. So he's fit and ready to go for the game. Apparently, that's all to do with reports this morning. But I think we'll just have to wait and see. And then, of course, you got Grealish. But again, Grealish has not started, but has had a real impact. I mean, in the Germany game, it was 0-0 when he came on, got an assist, got the move flowing in for the first goal as well. So you look at it and you go, we've got some real options in that position. But what I do like about this squad, Will, and I know I keep talking about squad depth and stuff, but it's just the fact you have got all these options. If it does go wrong tomorrow, say if we're 1-2-0 down at half time, you have that option then of bringing on those players. And I think that means that for Denmark, they don't really know what to like defensively, because we've got so many strong players in so many different positions attacking wise,
and especially now that we can have more subs as well because of
COVID. Yeah, because obviously the 5 subs. But it's gonna be a very, very difficult game, and it feels weird to say this, but obviously being a Leicester fan, obviously I wish Michael all the best in every other game in his career, but
This one, I hope he makes a howler.
Unfortunately, tomorrow I'm kind of wishing you'll just you'll have a bit of a howler, mate. I do apologise, but every other game I'll be supporting you till I'm blue in the face. But let's just hope that England can get the win. But I think Denmark have definitely deserved to be where they're at. They're definitely, again, like England. Obviously, England winning 4-0 against Ukraine. They won 4-0 against Wales. They're obviously on a high sort of spurt of form as well. So it's going to be a very, very close game, I think.
Yeah, I do as well. So what scoreline are you going for, then, Joe?
I've got to go for the old trusted 1-0, haven't I? 1-0 to England. I think we'll defensively we've looked solid. Pickford's looked solid. I feel confident in this defence now. Probably going to eat my own words, but do you know what I mean? I feel like because we've kept as many clean sheets as we have, and I think Harry Maguire, as much as Tyrone Mings did a great job in the first 2 games, you can tell he's a general at the back, can't you?
And it's the way he drives forward with the ball. He has that so much positively. Like, he's a good player on the ball as well. I know we say John Stones is as well, but Harry Maguire carries it forward. He has that presence about him, doesn't he?
I mean, it's no surprise, really. I mean, I think we've mentioned it on the podcast before, but Harry Maguire actually used to play in centre midfield for his youth career, and then has obviously slowly gone back into centre back. But and obviously he's better known as a centre back now. But he did used to play in his early career as a centre mid, and you can kind of see that with the way he plays.
Yeah, you really can. So you're going 1-0, are you, Joe?
I am. Yeah, I've got to back England, but it could go either way. I think Denmark are a threat for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 2-0. Let me show you why. Just purely because it would look so satisfying on the sheets, because we drew. So let's start from the first game. So we won 1-0, and then it was 0-0, then it was 1-0, then it was 2-0, then it was 4-0. So it's very satisfying to see the lines going up and down. But yeah, I can't see it being 8-0 though, can you now, Joe?
No.
So
I'm
going to go 2-0 England.
I think if you're going to look at your reasoning, I think it's slightly more bizarre. But yeah, I mean, if it's 2-0 tomorrow, then I'm not bothered if we get the win. But I think Denmark are going to give us a game for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
If you look at the Nation League, just going quickly back to that, we played them twice, drew 0-0 at home, and then lost 1-0 to them away. So they've got the ability to beat us.
Exactly. But last time we got Harry Maguire sent off, didn't we? That's a retro challenge of why arguably we lost that match.
Yeah.
But let's hope he doesn't get sent off this time, or any other England players.
Of course not. Let's hope not. Anyway, let's focus now onto the other side of the draw, because the game's happening tonight. Let's look at. I'll tell you what. Let's look at Italy first. What do we think of their tournament so far, and how's Mancini done, and how their players done, and who's been their star players for you? Because I mean, they've been fantastic to watch. Arguably my favourites for the tournament now, with the last 4 left.
Yeah, so I completely agree. So let's have a look at the run of games. So first they played Turkey. They won that one 3-0. Turkey were very lackluster, as they were all tournament. Match day 2, Italy played Switzerland. Again, it was a 3-0 win to Italy. So they're really, really in top form. Match day 3, they won 1-0 to Italy, where they completely rotated their squad, didn't they, versus Wales, but they still managed to win 1-0.
Yeah.
First match day 16. Now this was the closest game out of all of them, because they went to extra time against Austria, which you would have thought that Italy would have swept them aside. It was 2-1, so we're like, ooh, we're not sure how they're going to do that.
They were actually, if you look back at that game as well, they were actually very lucky. I mean, VAR's there for a reason, and the goal was offside. But if you remember, Arnautovic did put the ball in the back of the net to make it 1-0, or so they thought. And then, of course, the goal got ruled out, and then, of course, it went to extra time, didn't it? Because it was 0-0 after 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was. So it could have gone either way, but overall, you would have said fair enough, they've gone through.
Yeah.
Next, and the last game, what we've just played against Belgium, where they won 2-1, where overall, regardless of the cheating and diving around, that's by the by. People call it game management, but still, I thought they played very well. The only scratch on that game is that arguably one of the top performers had to go off injured, didn't they? And do you think that's going to be a big blow for Italy going forward?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they've got quality coming off the bench, haven't they? So, and I think it's very much Mancini set up a system. So if you're playing a role in that system, you know what you're doing. So I actually don't think they're going to suffer as much as they would have done to other sides, for example, because I think it is very much a systematic, system-based football team. You can tell that they've not exactly got a standout star. You probably say Insigne is probably that standout star. If you're gonna say they've got one, but I think there's a lot of players there that can do a job, and they very much like England this time round have picked players based on form, not on just name.
Yeah, because
So
there was no Real Madrid players at all. That's just a one thing. Then they weren't scared to make any scary decisions, were they?
no, they weren't. But yeah, so I think Italy. I'm fancying Italy for tonight. I think they'll come out on top because we'll go on to Spain in a second. But they've had a bit of a mismatched tournament. They've done really well to get this far, obviously. But I wouldn't say I was too scared of Spain. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I know they say England have had quite an easy run, but arguably Spain have had the easiest run at the last. Firstly, in the round of 16, they played Croatia, but that went to extra time, and it was a hell of a game to be fair. They ended up winning it 5-3 in extra time.
One of the games of the tournament. I mean, and then it was quickly followed by the game of the tournament, in my opinion, in Switzerland France. I know the scoreline, there was more goals scored in the game, but just because it was France and Switzerland and what happened, that has to be for me the game of the tournament. But I think, yeah, Spain, they've already shown that they can be breached. I'm not too worried about kind of if you set up right against them, you can kind of stop their threats. That's what I mean.
Because they score a lot of goals, but they're very leaky at the back, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and I think I can't see anybody but Italy winning tonight. If Spain win, then fair enough. But I've got to be honest, if England somehow get through to the final, if you're going to say to me Spain and England, I'm not saying that we'd be favourites, but I'd fancy our chances against Spain.
And if I'm being honest, you would fancy the chances against Italy as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. So let's just quickly talk about Spain then, like in their kind of run up of the. How do you think Enrique's done and how Spain are doing? Obviously, we talked about them being a bit mismatchy and stuff, but they've got where they are for a reason. Like you say, they've had quite an easy run. But where have their threats come from, and where is it because they try and pass teams to death, Will? Because that's what they still try and do that. They haven't got the squad to do that, but they've actually had the most passes. I think they've got the top 5 players for the most passes played in the tournament.
Yeah, and you saw it in the first match day as well, didn't you? Where go to it. They drew 0-0. But if you have a look at the stats, the possession was 75% for Spain, and that was just crazy. They completed 852 passes out of 954, which compared to Sweden only completed 103 passes. So I think that's just exhibit A of what you were just saying, weren't you? Really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they are passing teams, but what I'm saying is they don't have. The problem is with Spain is they don't have a prolific goal scorer. I mean, Morata's good; he's a good player, but he's
missed so many chances, though, hasn't he?
As we've seen, there's been jokes flying around and stuff, and I think, I can't see anybody but Italy winning, in my opinion. I really can't for this one.
So what score are you going for?
I'm going to go 2-0 Italy. I think that's being kind. I think it could be more. I just can't see, just with the style of football Italy have played, with the teams they've played, with the fact that they've come through against Belgium as well. Belgium obviously being one of the favourites for the tournament. I can't see anything but Italy win. So I'm going to go 2-0 Italy. What about you, Will?
I think Italy are going to win, and I'll tell you why. Spain might be a bit tired because the last two games have gone to extra time. And I know they've had a lot of possession and things, so they wouldn't be as tired. But playing all those minutes just take it out of you, and it's been a really long season. The players might not be as fresh, so I'm definitely going for an Italy win. I'm going to go 2-1 Italy.
Yeah,
I think Spain will score for sure.
yeah,
But
potentially.
again, it's knockout football, so anything can happen. We've seen that time and time again. How many upsets we've seen in the knockout stages, like France
again,
being knocked out, for example.
Going back to that, one of the footballing nights of the tournament for me was when obviously we had the Spain Croatia game 5-3 finished to Spain. You thought, oh, it can't get any much better than that. 8 goals, brilliant. Extra time, 8 goals, and then of course you saw the 3-3, and then France losing on penalties to Switzerland. I mean, that it just shows you what football's all about, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely.
And let's not forget in that game. I know both these teams are now out, but let's not forget in that game we've not had the chance to talk about it. 9 minutes to go. 9 minutes to go. France were 3-1 up in that game, and then Switzerland scored 2 goals in those 9 minutes, which was just
crazy.
I just honestly was just unbelievable. And of course, Switzerland go on to win on penalties. So you know what, you got to hand it to them. But no, that's just what football is all about, and anyone can win. But I'm going to pass you one last question before we sign off. Will, take your England hat off? Take your England hat off when I ask this question. Who's the favourite for the tournament now, and why? Out of the 4 teams, who's your favourite? If you had to say who's going to win it and why?
I'm gonna have to say Italy if I'm being brutally honest. I know I predict we before the podcast started, we went for our predictions from the last time we recorded the podcast, and I did predict an Italy-England final. I'm not going to say what you said, Joe, but that was plausible at the time as well.
Let's not.
I said Italy would win on penalties against England in the final. So I have to stick to my guns. I'm going to say Italy because I just think they've just been really strong, and they're a really, really hard team to break. And I think they've just got that a fantastic mixture of young talent coming through and the old and experienced head like Bonucci. And I just think they're going to be too much, and I think Italy's going to win, and that's why.
As well. Like they've got very experienced heads, haven't they? Cue a Spain 4-0 win tonight.
But like I say, anything can happen in knockout football, and that's why we love it.
I will say that obviously I'm just going to answer my own question as well. I will say that I completely agree. I think if you're going to say, for me, who's the favourites at this point, Italy, and then a close second, England. I think.
Yeah.
On paper, and I will stipulate that because I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a shock tomorrow night against Denmark with what they're playing with all that emotion.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So anything can happen, and I think if I'm a betting man, I wouldn't mind putting a fiver on Denmark tomorrow night. But that's without my England hat on.
Yeah.
I think it could unfortunately for us it could go the way of the Danes tomorrow night. But we'll see what happens. Anything can happen.
We'll see what happens. Right, on that note, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for joining me as always, Joe. And make sure you follow us on Twitter now, WFTK_podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. And make sure you like the video and comment your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? Make sure you click that subscribe button as well. Anything else to add, Joe?
No, let's go. And you know what? One more thing. It's coming home, lad. Come on,
It's
England.
It's coming home.
Let's
go. I'll see you later, mate.
See you later.